Good morning, Yolanda and members. I'm just checking my audio. Am I clear, Yolanda? Thank you.
Morning, Kashifa. Yes, you are clear.
Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Very good morning to all honorable colleagues on the platform. Good morning to our support team, Ms Silly, Ms Abrams, Ms Matthews, Ms Levendal. A very warm welcome to Parliamentary Legal Services, as well as our other stakeholders, Prof N Bohler-Muller and Ms Nxumalo, and all South Africans that are following us on the Zoom platform. You are all welcome this morning. Colleagues, in front of us is our agenda for this morning. Ms Silly, will you just table the agenda for us, take us through the agenda, and then also deal with apologies?
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members, and good morning, colleagues. Chairperson, in the agenda for this morning, we have opening and welcome, adoption of the agenda, apologies, briefing by Parliament's legal advisors on outcome of review for a proposed committee bill, the National Council on Gender-Based Violence. We're also going to look at implication of the committee bill, as well as the process of appointment for the NCGBVF bill. And we're also going to look at the amended advert, which is invitation for nominations to serve on the council. After that, we're going to have a briefing by Professor N Bohler-Muller, Head of Delegation for W20 on preparations and progress. After that, we're going to have a briefing from Ms J Nxumalo on syndicate involved in the financial and emotional crippling of working women. In terms of apologies, Chair, I have received an apology from Honorable Tsotetsi, who is this morning joining the PC on justice. I've also received an apology from Dr. Letlape, who has noted that he will be in court today. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ms Silly, for the tabling of the agenda and those apologies. Honourable members, can I take hands for someone to adopt our agenda, please? A mover and a seconder.
Morning, Chair.
Good morning, Honourable Pulwane, and welcome back.
Yes, morning, Chair, and morning, members of Parliament, everyone in the platform. I move for the adoption of the agenda of today. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Honourable Kanyile.
Morning, Honourable Chair and colleagues. Honourable Chair, I move to second the mover of the adoption of the minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honourable Kanyile. Honourable members, we will spend the bulk of this morning dealing with processes around the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. And we will take two short presentations at the end, which will be for noting purposes, but I will speak to that as soon as we get to the two presentations. I want to firstly say, honourable members, that the Act establishing the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide was assented to by the President on 24 May 2024. It was proclaimed and therefore came into being on the 12th of November 2024, and that is 10 months ago. Honourable members, you will recall at that time our portfolio committee was seized with the NYDA processes. However, during the first term of Parliament in February, the Minister indicated to us that the requisite funds to establish the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide was not in place. They had 5 million and they needed about 55 to 65 million. Subsequently, in the second term of Parliament, as a portfolio committee, we also met with Treasury, who also indicated that the funds was not available to set up this National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. And we then proceeded as a portfolio committee to consider an advertisement calling for nominations of the public sector and civil society to serve on this council. However, at that point, you honourable members had put a halt to this process because you felt, you didn't just want to tick a box by setting up a council without adequate funding. You felt that we needed to look deeper into clarifying the mandate of this council. For example, Dr. Leklape raised the issue around how would the council interact with the CGE so that they don't duplicate work. We also had concerns about a bloated secretariat, and we also wanted to establish how we could ensure that members of civil society were remunerated for their contributions to this council. And at that point, you honourable members, we as a collective, as a portfolio committee, then decided to liaise with Parliamentary Legal Services with regards to a committee bill, so that we could look at how do we remedy what we had flagged as issues in the current Act. And so this morning we meet to discuss with Parliamentary Legal Services after they've done their initial research on what they've identified we could remedy through a committee bill. So I really wanted to just clarify some of these processes because I felt that the allegations that was made against Parliament, that we have not followed due process or that we have been derelict in our duty, was unfounded. It was devoid of reality and fact. And in fact, we as a portfolio committee have said on numerous occasions that we want to prioritize gender-based violence and femicide, and this national emergency is one of our key priorities in the 7th administration. Now, what we will do now is we're going to hand over to Legal Services to take us through their presentation. From there, I'm going to ask Ms. Abrams to then take us through the proposed advertisement that will call for nominations for candidates to serve on this council. She will also take us through the application form, the time frames. And honourable members, I want to point out that we could still, proceed with calling for nominations for candidates to be recommended to serve on this council, and B, run a parallel process of still strengthening the Act through a committee bill process. In other words, we can still run two processes at the same time concurrently, which could then also result in us, appointing members to this council by April next year. Remember, the President said the funding will now be in place by April next year. And B, we could also then push to strengthen the Act through a committee bill by April next year. So those processes could run concurrently if honourable members decide you want to proceed with a committee bill. But I will, at this stage, hand over now to Parliamentary Legal Services to take us through their presentation. I will then allow for members to ask questions of clarity before we go to Ms. Abrams. Thank you very much, Dr. Loots. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members and colleagues. Chair, I will be joined by Ms. Angela Arnold and Mr. Notando Mpakashi, who will be assisting with the presentation. We are working as a team of 3 on this committee bill, just because we know that timelines are going to be tight and we want to give the committee full support in this as far as our capacity is concerned. So I will be doing the first portion of the presentation, speaking to background and constitutional considerations and perimeters. Then my colleague, Ms. Arnold, will be speaking to specific observations on sections in the Act that we've identified as recommended for amendment in terms of a committee bill. And then Mr. Notando Mpakashi will speak to the timelines that could run parallel, as Chair has indicated, with the appointing of the board members. So, Chair, for this purpose, I would like to start just to speak to the National Strategic Plan. Much is made of it initially when the original bill that led to the Act was tabled, and there's still reference to it continuously made. So we thought it important to just contextualize it. The National Strategic Plan is a guide. It's a policy doc or policy ideal, I want to say, that came out of a consultation process with various stakeholders, and it sets out a path which government then took in starting to work towards a plan to address gender-based violence and femicide. It's a strategic framework. It is not something that can be imposed to rigidly be implemented like step by step. There are certain aspects that blurs the lines between executive function and other bodies. So we need to approach the National Strategic Plan as a guideline and therefore with caution. It's not prescriptive because some of the things in there is not implementable in the way that it was phrased there, but we can still work within the constitutional perimeters to get us on the same track. For instance, there's 6 pillars mentioned in the NSP. It's accountability, coordination, and leadership. Then second, prevention and rebuilding of the social cohesion. Third, justice, safety, and protection. Fourth, response, care, support here, and then fifth, economic power, and the sixth is research and information management. Just looking at that, it is impossible for one council to meet and be responsible for the implementation of all those 6 pillars. If one looks at the 6 pillars, they are linked to specific departments and executive responsibilities and functions. So nothing in terms of this council can take away what is a mandate assigned to a department to do. But what does pop out there is the research and information management. And that's something where a council is a great format for facilitating a research on issues and to bring about a multi-level, multi-sectoral approach in terms of understanding how what the issues for GBVF is, how we can approach it, what the best case scenario is for ultimate resolution of the problem. So from that perspective, the NSP is a guide. And if we look at what is practically possible from the guide that is set there, it said that Parliament is to ensure a statutory framework. That is where this Act comes from. Then it says the Council is to report to the President through the Minister and the Presidency. That is in terms of the Act as well. Government is to ensure that funds are made available for optimal functioning. That's the big key point that brought us here to re-looking at the Act. And then structures within the Council must be inclusive of civil society. Those are broad things that the NSP highlighted as necessary. Oh, sorry, my tech skills today are a bit iffy. And for that reason, it is then that the mischief, as Chair indicated, was that the Act is currently being interpreted to result in a bloated budget in terms of the support structures and functions. And it was never the legislative intent for this council and the Act to be interpreted in a way that that would not achieve the objective. But for that objective, we must have a clear understanding of what the council can and may do. And then we will also address the bloated staff component that adds another layer of focusing rather than on the administrative functioning and cost of the council, rather than the focus and objectives of the council. So in terms of constitutional perimeters, it's important to note that we can't have legislation that takes away functions from the executive that are constitutionally assigned to the executive. And the executive is responsible for policy development. The same way that Parliament or the legislature is the primary arm of government that implements or develops and adopts legislation, so too the executive is the primary arm that develops policy and takes responsibility for that, and then also implements. So we must keep those perimeters in mind. The Act is supposed to set up a structure within which a dialogue can be facilitated. Members will know that there are various departments that are called to sit at the table of this council. We have women, youth and persons with disability, we have justice, we have social development, health, COCTA, police, basic education. They're all there because within their authority as policy developers, as the executive arms for those departments, they have an interest and they, in different aspects on the ground, take action that should be working towards eliminating GBVF. So they're all there for that purpose. Legislation cannot statutorily take that away from them. The purpose of having them all around this table is that there can be a shared dialogue, so that justice knows what health is saying about GBV, so that women, youth, and persons with disability knows what police is saying about GBV. And then if you bring together the civil society and private sector components as well, and they're all sitting around a table, it becomes a forum where dialogue can take place, and we can have a unified, uniform understanding of the issues underlying GBVF and that crisis, and how we can implement it or how we can address it. So when those role players step away from this roundtable discussion and go back to their various departments and organizations, they know that social development knows how justice thinks about it. Health knows how women, children, women, youth, and persons with disability think about it. And they all have a shared understanding. So when they develop their very specific departmental focused policies, it is with that shared understanding that they do so. So from that perspective, it is important to understand what the various role players bring to the table, and that it's not the council that's responsible for doing the work of those departments. This council is a forum where there's a shared interpretation then. So also then nothing can be given to the department in terms of monitoring and evaluating what the executive does. Oversight, apart now from the CGE, which I will get to, but oversight is something that is legislatively with the legislature. That's also a constitutional mandate. So if there's a question of whether the executive is doing something that they should be doing, like policy development and implementation, it is the constitutional responsibility of the legislature to perform oversight in that aspect. And then we look at Chapter 9s like the CGE. The Constitution specifically gives them a monitoring and evaluation capacity. So all of those things are constitutional perimeters that we should keep in mind. We can't say to the council that they are responsible for ensuring that a department develops and implements policy and law. We can't say that the council is responsible for standardization of legislation, because legislative capacity development does not fall with them. They can have thematic research and do discussions on where policy gaps perhaps are, and then report to the minister and in their forum discuss where policy gaps is, report, and that report then through the minister goes to the president, so that the president knows when he looks at the executive where the policy gaps are. That's of a persuasive value, but under no circumstances can a statutory council instruct and ensure and enforce. It is also then for this reason that members will see that the Act doesn't give powers for the council to instruct or to call on somebody to do something, because that is not something that can be given to them. That will undermine the constitutional mandates and functions of other role players. So there is a reason why that is there. We can also see that with the CGE specifically, the NSP was not unaware of the CGE's role. They specifically spoke to the CGE being a component that would assess and monitor the progress in the implementation of a national strategic plan addressing GBV. So it was never for the council to sideline the CGE or for the CGE not to exercise its monitoring and evaluation purpose. It was always there. The issue that we must guard against is interpreting and applying this Act in any way that would allow for a fragmented approach, because that will be contrary to the objective of a uniform dialogue, that everybody's working from the same baseline and understanding what the issues are. So if you give the council a evaluation and monitoring purpose that should actually fall somewhere else, and those two arms then work against one another, then it's actually going to be contrary on the ground and the implementation level of this Act to what the intent was. So we also need to look at how the CGE can be used in this dialogue for the monitoring and evaluation purpose, rather than creating a structure or interpreting a structure that excludes the CGE and doesn't use it in a manner that was envisaged by the NSP as a guide. Then also we looked at financial considerations. When the bill was, or the original bill was tabled that resulted in this act, the explanatory memorandum specifically made mention of 5 million per financial year. So when the committee in the Sixth Parliament processed this bill, or the original bill, and the act was enacted, it was done with that understanding. And it is quite a big gap from 5 million to 55 million. And that is where the alarm bells went off that something in the act is being misinterpreted and misapplied, because that was never the legislature's intent. The legislature's intent was also not for this to be wholeheartedly funded from funds appropriated by Parliament. For that reason, then, in Section 18 of the Act, it specifically says, yes, money is appropriated, but also donations and contributions, trust funds, interest derived, and money from any other source. So it's also not supposed to that we look at this council and say every rand and cent must come from appropriation. That was not the intent. It was also not the intent for this dialogue-oriented, uniform, thematic forum to be anything else where there is supposed to run programs on the ground and satellite offices. Nothing of that is supposed to be here. Those are responsibilities of the departments. When they implement policy on the ground, they can do all those things. So if one looks at this council with the clear intent of the objective for it to facilitate a dialogue and discussion, act as an advisory forum, then one starts to wonder why the 5 million became 55 million. Because if we bring it back to the purpose, 5 million or around about there, which will obviously have to be adjusted as costs over the years change. But it seems still very practical from our perspective to look at it as an advisory forum with that lesser financial burden. So keeping that budgetary considerations in mind as well, we then went into the Act and looked at specific sections. And for that, I will hand over to my colleague, Ms. Arnold. Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, Chair. Oh,
Thank you, Ms. Arnold.
my apologies, Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members, and good morning to all colleagues on the platform. Thank you, Dr. Lutz. So having set out the thought process in construction of the Act as informed by the NSP, which is a guide, and the mischief which needs to be addressed, I will consider, or I would like to just set out the possible amendments which we can use in order to address the identified issues. This will be a broad executive summary. The detail of these amendments will then be found in the actual bill, should the committee be so desirous of processing a committee bill. The first sections that I will address are sections 2, 4, and 5. The bulk of the amendments will be concentrated in these sections. Section 2 of the Act provides for the purpose of the Act. Section 2 should be tightened to ring-fence the parameters of the Council as a body that promotes dialogue and acts as an advisory structure, so as to prevent any possible exploitation or misinterpretation when it is read with sections 4 and section 5. Section 4 provides for the objects of the Council, and section 5 provides for the functions of the Council. The reading of these sections collectively, namely sections 2, 4, and 5, should not allow any scope for the implementation of the Act as giving the body powers and functions beyond the scope of what can legally be assigned to it. For this reason, we are of the view that section 4 and section 5 should be amended to prevent any exploitation or ambitious readings of the words such as facilitate, coordinate, monitor, and evaluate. The amendment of these three sections, 2, 4, and 5, is central to addressing the risk of abuse as identified by the committee. The next section is section 6. Section 6 of the Act sets out the membership on the board. As Dr. Lutz pointed out, monitoring and evaluation cannot as a function be assigned to the GBV Council or Board in a constitutionally compliant manner with due regard to the principle of legality. We propose that a consideration be given to the assignment of a seat on the board to the CGE chairperson or a CGE commissioner so nominated automatically. An argument in favor of such a construction can be made that the exclusion of a CGE seat at the table could create the possibility of a fragmented approach to the issues that are thematically key to the understanding of gender-based violence and femicide. Since membership of the board consists of 7 representatives from civil society and private sector, this is in terms of Section 6, we could consider, or we propose, in order to prevent any uncertainty, we look at a division or a split of this 7, possibly 4-3. We will be guided by the committee in this respect. Section 10 of the Act provides for remuneration, and Section 10 provides that members of private sector and civil society will be paid a reimbursement and allowance determined by the Minister in consultation with the Minister of Finance. Now, government employees will be paid subsistence and other allowances in accordance with such members' conditions of service as the public service regulations may determine. Section 10 in its current construction is in compliance with current National Treasury practice, specifically the National Treasury Circular, which is issued on a yearly basis by National Treasury, which sets out the cost of living adjustment, which at 1 April 2025 is at 4.1%. I draw the committee's attention to paragraph 2 of this National Treasury Circular. Paragraph 2 makes a distinction between those members that are full-time and those who are not. Full-time members receive a remuneration package which is structured according to the SMS system, and provision needs to be made for tax, pension, and medical aid. Paragraph 2 then goes on to explain that the rates which are attached, the rates are attached in a tabular form to the circular, are sit-in fees, exclusive of payments in respect of preparation, research, and traveling. The rate per day is the maximum allowed in a 24-hour period. This is irrespective of the number of boards or councils or committees that are served. In our view, the rationale behind this National Treasury practice as contained in the circular in restricting remuneration is to protect the public purse and prevent scenarios where boards or councils or committees are used as a mechanism for self-enrichment. When we are considering the provision of a full remuneration to board members that represent civil society, this will necessitate extensive consultation with National Treasury, as such would go contrary to the current practice. Further factors that may militate against such a policy perspective include, for example, the burden, as already mentioned, that this will place on the public purse, the fact that the board is required to meet only a minimum of 4 times a year. A distinction would then have to be made between those representatives from civil society and those from private sector. It's also not clear the situation that will then prevail when representatives from civil society already draw a full remuneration from the civil society organization that they represent. Further, Section 10 may also be amended should the committee so desire, to provide for remuneration of those members who are co-opted in accordance with Section 6. Section 10 may be clarified to provide that board members who are co-opted in accordance with Section 6 will be paid a reimbursement and allowance determined by the Minister in consultation with the Minister of Finance, should this be desirable. Section 14 provides for the committees of the board. Now, nothing stops the board from setting up various committees. This will be in accordance with its right to organize its internal arrangements. Also, there exists the possibility of a misinterpretation that more funds will be required to run these multiple committees. We therefore propose the deletion of Section 14. Section 16 provides for the functions of the CEO, and Section 17 provides for the Secretariat of the Council. Now, Section 16, read with Section 17, could possibly amend it to set clear parameters as to the type of support staff and the number of staff that would be required to provide support to the Secretariat with due regard to the purpose as set out in Section 2. This could possibly be a division between content and administrative support. Further, the provision that empowers the Minister to assign support to the Council can also be strengthened to clearly allow the Secretariat support or possibly secondment from the department should such need arise. With regards to the opening of the bank account, and in order to assist the board with having access to financial support prior to the appointment of the CEO, We propose a possible consideration of rephrasing this provision in order to align it while still maintaining alliance or conformity with Section 18 of the Public Finance Management Act as prescribed by the National Treasury Framework. We note also that there is unnecessary references to the Public Finance Management Act, the Labour Relations Act, and the Public Audit Act. And these unnecessary references are accordingly contained in Section 17, 18, 19, and 20. And we propose a consideration that these sections be amended with a possible full deletion as these sections are adequately catered for and provided for by laws of general application, which is the Public Finance Management Act, the Labour Relations Act, and the Public Audit Act. Lastly, given the intended scope, purpose, and functions of the Act, which should be read in a narrow manner as per the proposed amendments, we are also of the view that there is no need for the Minister to have extensive regulation-making powers. Section 24, which provides for the making of regulations, could therefore also be revised to align it with such an understanding. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, honourable members. I'll now hand over to my colleague who will set out the recommended way forward, taking into consideration the timelines in processing a committee bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning to the members of the committee, the support staff, and everyone in the meeting. I am Noluthando Tlhapane-Bekasha. I'll be dealing with the part of the presentation that deals with proposed timelines. As Barbara and Adila have already indicated, that these amendments will be, some of the amendments will be technical in nature, with the possible consequential amendments to clarify any ambiguity as to the strategic dialogue forum focus of the GBVF Council. And we also propose removal of unnecessary prescribed provisions, especially the ones with dealing with the operations of the board. We are of the view that GBVF Council should perform a supporting subject matter specialist role in the dialogue that informs the greater executive response and should not unnecessarily burden the public purse. So the proposed timelines are that we are proposing that by 31st October 2025, our office submit the first draft of the committee bill to the committee for consideration. This will be done to comply with NA Rule 2741A. And then on 28 November, in the event that the committee can provide feedback to our office on the first draft of the bill within 2 weeks, then our office could submit the second draft of the bill for consideration. This will be done to further assist the committee to comply with NA Rule 2741A. Around 8th December 2025, the committee would then have to consult the joint taking mechanism with our assistance in terms of Rule 2741B for the JTM to advise on the classification of the bill. We are currently of the view that the bill will be a Section 75 that is taking into account the fact that there will be no added amendments to what we have already presented. Then if we amend the bill, the Act within those parameters, then it will be a Section 75. Around 12 December 2025, we propose that a notice on the intention to introduce the bill be published in the Government Gazette, together with a copy of the bill or an explanatory summary. Will take guidance from the committee on that, on which one to advertise the notice with. Then, in this regard, our office will also provide support to the committee in the facilitation of such publication. And then on 26 February 2026, the committee to consider any written submissions that were made on the bill and deliberate and make any required amendments to the draft committee bill as per committee process as set out in NA Rule 286. And then around February, March 2026, the committee can introduce the committee bill by submitting a copy together with the supporting memorandum to the Speaker in compliance with NA 279. We estimate that this whole process will take a period of 1 week. Then we'll also submit to the Speaker the findings of the JTM as per NA 280. That should be tabled with the committee bill when it is introduced. We estimate that will take 1 day. The committee bill does not require first reading. It can be merely be placed on the order paper for second reading and can be considered by the House after 2 working days from the date it was placed on the order paper for second reading. That will also depend on the programming of the National Assembly. So we also estimate 1 week. And then around March, April 2026, if the committee bill is adopted by the National Assembly, it must be transmitted to the National Council of Provinces for consideration and for voting. If the bill is a Section 75 bill, as we have predicted, it is possible that the committee bill will pass through the second house within 6 to 7 weeks. That is all, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to Dr. Lutz and her team. Colleagues, we are going to meet on Friday morning to adopt our minutes as well as our APP and strat plan. So my plan is to defer the decision on whether we want to proceed with the committee bill to Friday. This will allow you, honourable members, to consult and lobby each other and also to speak to your party leadership and your caucuses. But in the meantime, that does not stop you from asking any questions of clarity at this stage. If I can take hands to see if you would like to ask any questions of clarity on this presentation.
Chair, if you can recognize me, I'm able to mute myself. Thank you very much.
Okay, can I check if there are any other hands? No other hands at this stage. Okay, Honourable Chauke Adonis, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings to yourself and the honourable members, and also to the team that has presented. We welcome the presentation. Chair, perhaps for me, it would just for us to get a better understanding and clarity on the schedule that the establishment of the council falls under. If I am correct, it falls under Schedule 3. Perhaps if we can get a broader explanation or definition of that, what that means, and the responsibilities that are assigned to a Schedule 3 entity. And I think in terms of what was also presented as part of the recommendations for amendments, one will also make those considerations when obviously going and doing further consultations, taking into consideration the timelines. The last part would be if we were to make any of these amendments as part of the committee bill, one would want to find out if we would have to undertake the process of stakeholder or community or civil society engagements. What would that look like in terms of the timelines and the processes that would need to be followed in order for us to make any form of amendments, taking into consideration that this was done through a consultation with civil society, the private sector, in order for us to have this bill or this legislation put in place as an act and the establishment of the council. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chauke Adonis. Honourable Mchunu.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, everyone. My question, I just need a clarity on timelines and process. I have just 2 questions. Given the agents of GBVF, is the proposed timeline stretching to March, April 2026, not too slow for victims who need immediate interventions? And how will the committee ensure meaningful public participation within these timelines, especially from rural and marginalized communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Mqunu. Honourable Mabel, welcome. Hlonishwa, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, yeah, my questions, let me just go straight to the questions. Which exact clause in section 2.4 and 5 will be amended to remove mandate creep and keep the council advisory only? And the second question, the Act memo envisaged 5 million per year. Why are we now seeing 24 posts and 3.4 million already reallocated in 2025-26? What binding staff cap will you set? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Dr. Lewis, I think you can speak to timeframes as well as the bloated secretariat. If you can just re-emphasize some of those points, if you can just answer the questions, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm gonna the Schedule 3 question. My colleague Adila will deal with. But for the others, as to the concerns of public participation processes, those will basically be the same as with any other piece of legislation that committees deliberate on. So the public participation processes are our standard processes, and we need to facilitate reason or give a reasonable possibility for people to communicate with the committee on any proposed amendments. And then the same thing with republication and all of that. If the bill goes out for comment and the committee listens to public comments, and then if there's any substantial amendments following that, it will have to go to public comment again. So all of those are, for constitutional compliance purposes, are standard in terms of legislation processing. This process doesn't disregard any of those standard practices. Those are included. For that purpose, it is that we are saying advertise for comments over December, January, so it's a long period, and then in February, come back and consider public comments, do public hearings, deliberate, all of those processes then included. That's also where the proposed timelines then comes from. On the question of what details will be changed in 2, 4, and 5, those issues will be tabled to the committee if the committee has or obtains permission from the House to do a committee bill in the first draft that we will table with the committee end of October then. So that's work that will follow once we have a clear instruction and the House has given permission, then we can work on those details. But the details in those 3 sections are to clarify, as we said, that the object of this council is to be advisory in terms of thematic understandings and a uniform understanding within government then of the issues underlying GBVF and how those should be responded to when the executive develops the policy and implements such. So that's that. In terms of the budget, sorry, Chair?
No, you can proceed, Dr. Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Then in terms of the budget, we are as perplexed as members are how we jumped from 5 million to 55 million. Because when we worked with the committee in the first on the first bill, the original bill's processing, that was never envisaged. That is why we're thinking that a clear delineation of what the structure should be within the Secretariat and to strengthen the capacity of the department to second people to support the Secretariat where needed can assist with such, because currently it appears that the Act is being interpreted or applied as requiring functions and monies that was not the intent of the legislature when the Act was originally processed. So for that purpose, that's where we see the bloated budget coming from. So if we can clarify clearer and in absolutely unambiguous terms what the purpose of this council is, and that it should not have any implementation or control functions, but it should merely be an advisory body, then we don't foresee it needing 55 million to perform its functions. Then a lesser amount as per the legislature's initial intent. It would be more in line with the 5 million or something around that area. Chair, if I can hand over to my colleague Adila to please speak to the Schedule 3 question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lutz. So, if memory serves me correct, the council is intended to be a Schedule 3 public entity. Now, the Public Finance Management Act and the first step that would need to occur, this is in terms of Chapter 6, specifically Section 47 of the Public Finance Management Act, sets out that the listing of the public entity will need to happen. And in terms of Section 47.2, the accounting authority for the public entity that is not listed in either Schedule 2 or 3 of the PFMA without delay must notify National Treasury in writing that the public entity is not listed. So there will be a technical undertaking or process that will happen with the listing of this council as a public entity, specifically a Schedule 3 public entity. Now, if we go further along in Chapter 6 of the Public Finance Management Act, Section 49 then sets out that public entities must have an authority which is accountable in terms of the Public Finance Management Act. Now, because we have a board, Section 49(2) of the PFMA sets out that the board or other controlling body will be the accounting authority for the purposes of the Public Finance Management Act. Now, we made reference briefly in the presentation to the fact that the Act currently does actually repeat sections which are provided for in the Public Finance Management Act. Now, these sections which places certain responsibilities or obligations on the accounting authority of this public entity will be Section 50, which sets out the fiduciary duties of the accounting authority. Section 51, which sets out general responsibilities of the accounting authority. Section 53, which sets out details with regards to the annual budget and corporate plan. Section 55, which sets out details or responsibilities with regards to the annual report and financial statements. Section 56, which sets out or provides for the assignment of powers and duties by accounting authorities. And Section 57, which provides for other responsibilities on other officials when dealing with the public
ndibabuze ukafuna ukupenda nini ngoba ndaqala ngathi sengupende wahlala
Nxumalo, just please mute your mic. Sorry, Ms. Arnold.
Oh, thank you, Chair. So the details are contained in the Public Finance Management Act, and they will be applicable and binding to the Council as a Schedule 3 public entity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much to the parliamentary legal team. Colleagues, I want to then propose, you've heard the parliamentary legal team in terms of what we can do to strengthen this act. I'm not going to ask you to take a vote on it now or to pronounce yourselves on the committee bill at this stage. I want you to consult each other. I want you to go through the presentations again, consult your caucuses that are sitting on Thursday. And then on Friday morning when we meet to adopt our APP and strat plan and our minutes, I will call on political parties to give an impression or to express themselves on whether you want to proceed with the committee bill or not. I hope that is okay with all honourable members. It allows you for more time to consider what Parliamentary Legal Services has presented to us this morning. I hope I have got the support of the committee on this proposal. Honourable members?
Supported, Chair.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
Chair, we support.
Thank you so much, colleagues. That's good to hear. Okay, then the second part, as I've indicated, if we do decide to continue with the committee bill, that will be one process leading up to April. Remember, the President said the funding for this council will be in place as of April. But the second part is now that the President has made the public commitment that funding will be available for this council, which was one of our key concern areas. We now do have the ability to move forward by today, one, considering the timeframes for the advert that will be running, which of course will be calling for nominations from the public sector and civil society to serve on this council. But I'm going to hand over to Ms. Abrams to take us through the timeframes, the processes, the online application form, and the advert that would need your support so that we can, in all earnest, start this process as quickly as possible. Over to you, Ms. Abrams.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will just share. I think it's important for us just to have a sense of the timeline for how we will proceed. So today, as Chair's indicated, we're looking at the consideration of the advert, the application form, and a draft program for this appointment process. Once members have agreed and to the advert and the application form, there would need to be liaison with ICT for the online application. The advert would run from the 28th of September to 31 October. That's 25 working days. So all in all, it's just over a month. It's the month of October and the last few days of September. During the week of the 3 to 6 November, there'd be consolidation of all the applications we would receive via online as well as email. The Excel list of all the applicants would be sent to members to look at in early November. By the 18th of November, we would have a committee meeting to look at shortlisting of candidates to be interviewed, as well as getting input from members for how we would proceed with the public commentary for the shortlisted candidates. Their CVs would be posted from the 18th of November towards the end of that week. But once we've shortlisted, the candidates would also have to go, would go through a process of the documentation being reviewed by HR in terms of the qualifications, as well as vetting by SAPS. A media alert would be issued by the end of that week, and then all the CVs would be posted online of your shortlisted candidates from November through December to the beginning of January. That takes us 31 working days to allow for public commentary. The public commentary would then be collated during the mid-January. By Friday the 20th, an Excel list of all the public commentary would be sent to members. The 28th of January, members would consider the public comments received. The interviews would be for the 29th and the 30th of January. The following Tuesday, there'd be deliberation on the outcome of the interviews, and then consideration and adoption of the report by the 10th of February. Given that it's SONA and budget, it will enable members to ensure that the report gets on the order paper for deliberation in the House. So, Chairperson, that is the program. Before I move on to the application form, I'll take members through the advert. So it's an invitation for nominations and applications for individuals to serve on National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. The Portfolio Committee invites members of the public from civil society and private sector to apply, and organizations or individuals to nominate suitable candidates for appointment to serve on the National Council on Gender-Based Violence as mandated by the Act number 9 of 2024. All applicants or nominees will be required to complete an online application. So as we've worked in the past around the NYDA process, we'll have a link inserted where people are able to do that application online. That link will also be available via WhatsApp, where you're able to open the link and then complete the application form. Given the Constitutional Court judgment around the CGE matter, which the committee will be hearing in return in the fourth term, it was also advised that we don't only have an online application, but we provide an opportunity if people are unable to use that online, that they are able to email their CV. But because we expect them to complete the application form, Applicants would then also be required to contact the committee secretary to receive that application form, also to submit via email. So all applicants and nominees are required to upload certified copies not older than 6 months of their identity document and academic qualifications. And then where assistance is required, contact the committee secretary. In other words, if people are having challenges with the online application or email, they can contact the committee secretary, or if they feel for whatever reason they're unable to use both, but would need to bring in a paper copy of the application and CV, they would need to contact the committee secretary. Shortlisted candidates and their resumes will be published on the parliamentary website to allow members of the public to comment on the suitability of candidates. Disclosure of personal information of candidates is subject to lawful processing and secure storage. All shortlisted candidates will be subjected to pre-employment screening by the State Security Agency and verification of qualifications by Parliamentary Human Resources. All applications will be in line with the Protection of Personal Information Act number 4 of 2013 and the Employment Equity Act number 55 of 1998. The President will, on recommendation of Parliament, appoint a member to the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide for a term of office not exceeding 3 years. Each member of the National Council holds office for a period not exceeding 3 years, but is eligible for reappointment for only one additional term not exceeding the 3 years, and is also eligible for an extension of office for a period not exceeding 6 months. With respect to the requirements, as per the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act, the candidates must be fit and proper persons to hold office, must be persons with applicable knowledge and expertise regarding matters that are related to the Act, reflect the demographics and geographical spread of South Africa. In addition to the above requirements, it is important for applicants and organizations or individuals nominating candidates to note the following. The board is legislatively responsible for the functioning of the council. In terms of Section 3, read with Sections 4 and 5, related objects and functions, it is the responsibility of the council to provide strategic leadership and coordination in the prevention of and response to gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa. The term of office, as set out in Section 9, along with the fact that members of the board are not entitled to a salary payment. Section 10 only makes provision for the reimbursement and allowances determined by the Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability, the Minister in consultation with the Minister of Finance. Nominations or applications must contain the full name, address, email address and contact of the details of the person or organization making nomination, as well as a signed acceptance of the nomination by nominee, including the nominator. The closing date for applications is midnight on 31st of October 2025. The inquiries can be addressed to Mr. Mvaba Dumizweni, the committee secretary, with the cell phone number indicated. Chairperson, I'm just going to take members through the amended application form so that members have a holistic understanding of one, the program, the advert, and what all applicants or nominees would be expected to complete. So the purpose of the application form for candidates is really to provide members with some key information in a coordinated, integrated manner to understand what information is being provided to the committee to consider who should be recommended to the President. In terms of personal information, it covers name, surname, date of birth, their address, their gender, race, as well as disability. In terms of education, requesting for certified copies, not older than 6 months in chronological order. With respect to work experience, we have a number of options, employed, self-employed, unemployed, or student. Again, applicants would be able to upload and indicate their various jobs, their position, employee, start to end date. We'd also ask for provide details of any other work, advocacy, or academic experience related to gender development and or gender-based violence and femicide that you feel may be relevant. In terms of section 4, please explain why you believe you should be considered to serve as a board member for the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, and how will you contribute to the effective functioning of the council. Section 5 looks at which sexes do you currently present, under civil society, private sector, they specify, trade union and other. We asked if the person has any board experience. In 17, 18, are there any circumstances, financial or otherwise, known to you which might cast doubt on your fitness to hold office as a board member? If so, they need to provide details. 19, have you been convicted of a gender-based violence and femicide-related offence or any other criminal offence sentenced to a term of imprisonment without the option of a fine, or any other disreputable or dishonourable conduct? Are you insolvent? Has a competent court ever declared you to be of unsound mind? Are you under curatorship? Has any professional body ever found you guilty or of any professional or disgraceful misconduct? 24, have you ever been removed from an office of trust on account of any form of misconduct, including sexual harassment, corruption, theft or fraud? Please take account of your current and previous places of employment, educational establishment when answering. 25, are there any other relevant matters which concern your honesty, integrity and reliability which you should bring to the attention of the committee? 26, do you have any interest in a company, a non-governmental organisation or any other business interest which may affect the work of the council? 27, nomination, kindly indicate. And then 28, are you aware that the term of office as set out in section 9 of the Act, that members of the board are not entitled to a salary payment, that section 10 of the Act only makes provision for reimbursement and allowances determined by the Minister for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, the Minister in consultation with the Minister of Finance. And then finally, for section 6 and 7, 6, summary of resume. In the event that the candidate is shortlisted, your resume will be posted on Parliament's website for public commentary. Kindly provide a copy of your resume in keeping with the provisions as outlined in the POPI Act. This resume will only be published for a limited period once a candidate has been shortlisted. Disclosure of personal information of a candidate is subject to lawfully processing and secured storage. All applicants will be in line with the POPI Act and Employment Equity Act number 55 of 98. And then lastly, members, for section 7, in terms of the declaration, I hereby declare that the information provided is true and correct. I understand that any willful dishonesty or non-submission of required documents may render for disqualification of this application. If this application is successful, I authorize Parliament of South Africa to keep this information in my personal files. Otherwise, all information will be destroyed within 3 months after the date of application. I authorize Parliament of South Africa to disclose in a confidential manner any information supplied in this application to the relevant parties, namely the Human Resource Management and the State Security Agent, for verification of qualifications and screening in the event that I am shortlisted. I also understand that in the event I'm shortlisted, I should, as opposed to a summary, members, in keeping with the Constitutional Court judgment, we'll say that the candidate's resume, as outlined in section 6 of this application form, will be open for public commentary for a limited period. I agree that the information provided was submitted by myself and all responses are through reflection of my employment and personal history, and that employment would not be held liable for incorrect information provided by the applicant, either by willful act or negligence. And then, so members, really the last section is for the candidate to know that they would need to still submit their CV. That CV, if they shortlisted, would be available on Parliament's website, as we noted in the Programme of Action project plan for the appointment of this process for public commentary. Chairperson, I'll just go back to the advert and get input from Chairperson members in terms of the way forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Ms. Abrams. I think it goes back to the point that Honourable Mabel had raised around timeframes. Colleagues, even if we publish advertisement tomorrow, which won't be the case because we still have to, of course, go through the processes of procurement in terms of placing the advertisement. But even if we had to publish this ad tomorrow, and we wanted to interview or shortlist candidates in November and interview them by December, it's not possible because of the Constitutional Court ruling on the CGE, which has indicated that we need longer time frames in order to obviously advertise and ask for public commentary. Maybe Dr. Lewis, did you want to add something in terms of that?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think I'm covered by what Kashifa has set out, unless there's a specific question that the committee requires clarity on.
Okay, perfect. So I think what we can do now, honourable members, if you are happy with the timeframes, if you're happy with what Kashifa has tabled, if you're happy with the understanding of the longer timeframes in terms of us advertising and keeping the information on the website, and you are happy then to move for the adoption of these documents, I will take your hands, please. Honourable Angel.
Thank you, Chair. I'm having a problem with my bandwidth. Can I please keep my video off?
No problem.
Chair, I'm happy. I think my first question with regard to the Concord ruling has been covered when you were speaking just now. I just have a second question. I understand that we are shortlisting. I don't know if I missed this because of the network issues. How many members of this council are we going to have? Do we have clarity on that? And I also would like to know if we have clarity in terms of how much has been made available by the National Treasury for this activity. Because if you will remember very well, even though I will put it as it was communicated, the president tried to put the blame on this portfolio committee that the reason why this National Council on Gender-Based Violence has not been established, it's not his fault, it's on our side because we've not done what we're supposed to do. But at the time, we have been saying, even to the minister, even in the House, when we're doing some of our declarations, we have said time and time again that we don't want to do an exercise that is just only going to be a tick box exercise. We want to know if we are going to have a reasonable number, and the same number is going to be properly budgeted so that it is able to do what is meant to do on the ground. Because having this council, we will definitely want to see some change, a difference, a decrease in number of the GBV cases. Right now, we're only sitting with 5 million rands, which we all know that money only goes to the payment of salaries. Are we now aware what amount is available for the council? That is my question, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honourable Angel Kanile. Honourable Shabango.
Chair, thank you so much, and thank you for the presentation, the work that the team presented to us. I don't have a question. I just wanted to raise that I am okay with what was presented to us, because considering that we want to prevent the legal actions, hence we decided that we will take this long to advertise. I'm in agreement with everything that was presented here. And I think Honorable Kanile is putting it in a way that if she says the president tried to put a blame on us, he didn't try. He put a blame on us. And for that, I think we got into a stage where we back the we beg for the money, we beg for the budget, we beg for everything. Because if we take, for instance, simple, if you are a treasurer and you're supposed to do some activities to fundraise, that's your full responsibility. I think treasurers, the Minister of Finance is supposed to make money available. Maybe we take the blame because we waited, we were begging for the budget to be availed. Yes, we didn't want to do a tick box, but I think the blame was thrown on us, despite all the what we said in Parliament, all that we said that we don't want to make a tick box. But we are learning in future, we should do this better. It's fine, we'll take a blame because it was already said that we failed to put this a board in place. It didn't try. It put a blame on us. But in the future, I think we should do it better than we did. That we just demand, not to beg for the budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Shavango. I see the hand of Honourable Chauke Adonis.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And I would like to also just appreciate the presentation in terms of what is presented before us with the processes that we then follow. I think my question would be, because we know that the court judgment has brought CGE back for us to undertake that process, one would just want to have an indication of how that process we will then undertake it, seeing that there's a provision of 12 months in order for us to undertake that process. Would we be doing it bilaterally with this particular process? I think that's also important. And then also looking at the timelines that we have set out, will these timelines just also be applied when it comes to the process of appointing or advertising for the CGE? And then lastly, Chairperson, I think I also do agree with Honourable Kanyile and Honourable Fisani as well in terms of, the blame that was given to the portfolio committee. And I think this would speak to the 6th and 7th administration. But the concerns that were raised by the portfolio committee were very valid concerns, especially when it comes to budget allocation. Our biggest and greatest concern was not having a commitment of a budget that would then be allocated to the council for us to have trust or have knowing that it would have the ability to execute its intended mandate. I think also going forward, Chairperson, what I'm going to request through you is that we must ask that the ministry must provide us with updates in terms of the correspondence that they are having with Treasury, because correspondence has been taking place between National Treasury and the department regarding the budget allocation, the negotiations. So I am then going to request that the department really improves on their communication on keeping the portfolio committee updated in terms of the negotiations and the correspondence that takes place in regard to entities that we oversight. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much to all three speakers. Before I ask Dr. Lewis if she wants to add anything, Honourable Kanyile, we are looking for 7 members. That will be 7 members that represent civil society and the public sector. With regards to the question from the Honourable Whip with regards to the CGE, we will be running these processes concurrently. So Friday when we meet, we will be presenting to the committee a draft 4th term and 1st term program. We are just waiting for some pronouncements that will come from the speaker in terms of how we should be running the process. I fully agree with you, Honourable Chauke Adonis, that we should write to the department to give us regular updates with regards to their talks with Treasury. I do understand all the comments from honourable members about timeframes and the processes and the fact that we were blamed. I still maintain that we were unfairly blamed. I had set out in the beginning, honourable members, that The act was assented to on 24 May 2024, and it was proclaimed on 12 November 2024. In other words, it came into operation less than 10 months ago. You will also recall, honourable members, that one of the tasks given to government was that they should have nominated their government representatives to serve on this council. That only happened 2 months ago. So if we are to apportion blame, it should also go somewhere else, in that government only sent their representatives or nominated their representatives 2 months ago. But be that as it may, I think the Honourable Whip had indicated that at no point did we delay this process unnecessarily. There were genuine concerns from our committee. In other words, we wanted to make sure that the act is strong enough, that it will guide the work of the council properly, that there's adequate funding. We wanted to make sure that civil society is looked after, and that is well within our prerogative, honourable members, while we understand that there's a national emergency with regard to gender-based violence in our country. I think the work that we were doing throughout the year, remember we first met with the minister in February when she indicated there was no budget. We then, as a portfolio committee, followed up and called Treasury to come and explain why there's no funding. When we then, in the second term, met to discuss the advertisement, we then flagged the issues that we wanted further answers or consideration of. And now we're in the third term. So I do want to say that, yes, of course, pronouncements were made in 2022, but the passing of the legislation and the act coming into being was only 10 months ago. And then further delays happened with government not nominating their representatives. But we will move with speed, colleagues. I just wanted to say that I want to hand over to Dr. Lutz to end off before I ask for all of us to give our, to move and adopt the documents that Ms. Abrams tabled. But I do see the hand of Honourable Mabel.
Chair?
Yes,
yes, thank you.
Honourable Mabel.
Apologies, Chair.
Honourable Mabel, please proceed.
Yes, thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Yeah, my question is, how will you guarantee sectoral representativity, disability, LGBTQIA, and rural voices, given no salaries and limited allowances? My second question will be, will you publish a scoring rubric, interview outcomes, and a public participation window for shortlisted CVs to ensure legitimacy? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Doctor. I'm making you a doctor now, Dr. Mabel.
Oh,
It's a free promotion this morning. No, I think with regards to the publishing of the scores or the outcomes of the scoring of candidates, I think we were guided by legal advice previously that is against the POPI Act. But Dr. Lutz, I think you do have questions to respond to. I just wanted to see, Honourable Chalke Adonis, do you have an additional question?
Yes, Chairperson, and apologies for that. I just wanted to find out, and I think it's similar to Honourable Mabel's question, in terms of the representation, perhaps when our legal guru comes in, our doctor, can just respond to how are we going to then be able to distinguish, between the private sector and civil society in terms of the application process. From civil society, will there be a nomination process that allows for the organization to then nominate an individual or nominate a particular organization coming from civil society? Perhaps if we can be taken through how that looks like, so that we also mitigate any legal implications that might come after, where civil society says that we did not follow a process that was just for them, but also the private sector then coming in and says the process was not just for them. If we can have a legal background on it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chalke Adonis. I even thought about the fact that we might have difficulties in that we have to nominate 7 and they have to comprise civil society and the public sector. And we might find that civil society would say to us, no, 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 we deserve 5 seats and 2 should go to the public sector and vice versa. So we might run into difficulties where that sort of component, we would have difficulties where one would say, no, we deserve greater representation than the other. But I'm sure I might be just running ahead of things at this stage. But let me hand over to you, Dr. Lutz, just for your final comments. And then I would want to ask for someone to move for the adoption of the documents that Ms. Abrams had tabled. Dr. Lutz?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, at the moment, I can highlight to members that Section 6 of the Act, sub 5, as it currently reads, says members appointed in terms of this section must be fit and proper to hold office, be persons with applicable knowledge and expertise with regard to matters that are related to the purpose of this Act, so GBVF issues in addressing that crisis, and reflect the demographics and geographical spread of South Africa. So those are requirements that the committee needs to keep into consideration when looking at CVs, when shortlisting and when interviewing. So the questions posed by members to the candidates will obviously then also assist members in weighing whether these requirements are met. At present, also, Chair, the Act only says 7 candidate or representatives from civil society and the private sector. It doesn't give a split. So at the moment, the 7 is open to representation purposes when the committee makes that recommendation. The way I read it currently, and I don't know if my colleagues would like to jump in, they can if they have something to add, but I see the 7 representatives of coming from civil society and private sector, and it currently being for the committee in its recommendation to identify how the split should be done, as long as there are a representation from both areas. So that's why in our presentation we indicated that going forward, perhaps if the Act is amended, there should be clarity on that. But with that being said, when amendments come into place, it's forward-looking and not backwards-looking. So when the committee does its recommendation now, it will be within the perimeters of Section 6 as it currently reads, which leaves that discretion as to the recommended split for the committee as far as I can see. I don't know if my colleagues want to add, if I can perhaps just ask if Adela and Noluthando wish to supplement, otherwise I'm covered. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Lutz.
Please proceed.
So, again, apologies, Chair. Yes, so the 7th split, the Act doesn't specify how the split needs to happen, and that is within the committee's discretion. Perhaps it's a practical consideration once the committee receives the CVs and you are going through the consideration of these possible candidates, it will become apparent. You might have strong possible candidates from private sector who, will motivate to the committee as to why they should be on there, and sort of inform the decision that the committee will make. Conversely, there might be strong candidates from civil society and maybe not that much from private sector. Taking into account that the representatives from private sector and civil society would play a different role as mandated by Section 6. It is determined by the experience within the sector. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Ms. Arnold. Kashifa, Ms. Abrams, is there anything else that you wanted to bring to our attention?
Thank you, Chairperson and members. So the application form is exactly to address some of the things that members have raised now. One of the section covers your experience. So applicants would be asked of the experience and from which sector. And then they would need to specify, do they have specialization around children, women, persons with disabilities, LGBTQI, are they from the private sector or not? So the application form over and above their CV gives you the information you'd want to look for. In the application form as well, there's a specific question where we ask the candidate, they need to motivate why they should be considered to serve on this council. And again, that's the value of not only having the person's CV, but this application form to give you insight into who's applying, from where, and what the motivation is. And as the adverts indicated, me as an individual, I can apply, but an organization or a business can also nominate who they deem would be a suitable candidate to serve on this council. So in terms of Honourable Chauke Adonis's questions, it's again where you get the information. You'll obtain the information from the application form together with the CV. And as the legal team has indicated, it's the committee's prerogative then to decide who should be shortlisted. And hence that meeting towards the end of January, when you look at all of your, the shortlisting would happen in November, where you look at all the applications along with the CVs, members can then decide how many you'd want to interview, and then look at the criteria for considering your shortlisting. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Abrams. Thank you very much, Dr. Lewitz and your team for the hard work. As I've indicated, the Portfolio Committee will consider the documents that have been tabled in terms of the committee bill, but we are most grateful that you have taken the time to assist us with identifying some of the mischief in the current Act and how we can remedy that and strengthen the work of the Council and our own committee processes. May I then take this opportunity to ask for one honourable member to move for the adoption of the timeframes, the advertisement, and the online application form, and to get a seconder, please.
Chair.
Powane.
Yes, Chair, I want to suggest that the committee agree with the application form, a candidate, and the program. Chair, all of us, we are aware that in South Africa, GBV is a crisis. We must expedite this process. So I so submit.
So you are moving for the adoption of the advertisement, the application, and the timeframes?
All of them, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I have given a commitment, Honourable Powane, that we will expedite this process, but as I've indicated, we are now guided by the Constitutional Court in terms of the timeframes. In other words, for how long we should advertise, for how long we should keep the information on our website. So as much as we want to move as fast as we can, we need to also comply with the, the requirements or the advice that the Constitutional Court has given us and the recent ruling in terms of the CGE. Honourable Kanyile, Honourable Shabango.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I would like to concur with the Honourable Polwane, at the same time concur with your response to the Honourable Member, because I don't think we would want to see ourselves restarting the process like we are going to do now with the CGE, especially now that there is a ruling already that has been made. I think it's very important that we be guided by the ruling. And of course, I do believe that Dr. Tembe will assist us like he always has. With that being said, Chairperson, I support the adoption. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Kanyile. Honourable Shabango, you were also supporting?
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, colleagues, I just want to then, before we step off this item, remember on Friday morning we are meeting. You will get the details. You'll come back to express yourself as political parties and individuals on the committee bill, whether you want to proceed or not. We will take you through the first term and the fourth term and first term program for next year, which will show you how we will concurrently run the processes of finding candidates to serve on this council, but also how we start the CGE process, and we will adopt our APP and strat plan and our minutes. Honourable members, that then concludes this item. We will now take two short presentations. The first presentation is by Professor Bohler-Muller. Welcome, Prof Bohler-Muller. Prof Bohler-Muller is the Women 20 lead, and she will take us through the W20 processes. And I think we as a portfolio committee have been asking the question, how will the G20 and the W20 benefit women, youth, and persons with disabilities, particularly in our rural communities? And I'm sure she will answer that question for us this morning. From there, we will take a short presentation by Ms Nxumalo. Zwide had written to the speaker last year already. That petition was referred to us, our portfolio committee. We have not been able to deal with it, but considering that the Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities made a ministerial statement in Parliament last week on job scams affecting women, Ms Nxumalo wants to bring to our attention financial scams that are affecting women, and the speaker had asked this portfolio committee to consider that presentation and then to come up with a resolution on how we will deal with it. I do, however, want to make the point that soon enough, Parliament should be establishing a petitions committee where going forth, hopefully these petitions will go to a specific committee where they will be looked at. And going forward, I think this will be the last petition, unfortunately, honourable members, that we as a portfolio committee will have time to look at, considering that we will be leading a statutory rape inquiry. We will be tasked with establishing the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, and we also have to lead the process of re-establishing the CGE. So that will be the last presentation, but I will hand over to you, Prof. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your willingness to share with us the work that you are leading and doing. And our big concern is how will it benefit the constituency that we are representing here at Parliament. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. I assume that you can hear me.
Very clearly, Prof. You can proceed.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I hear the Honourable Chair and Honourable members that the focus should be predominantly on issues that are pressing to the Portfolio Committee. So I will give a brief discussion on the history of Women 20, the context in which we find ourselves, as well as what has happened to date and what is still to happen. So I'm assuming that also my presentation is visible.
We can see it, Prof.
Okay, I'm just hoping that I can scroll through it. Sorry, that's sometimes a bit difficult. So it should be on the second slide now.
That's correct. We can see the second slide.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we all know about what G20 is by now, so I'm not going to go into too much detail there. I think what's important to say is that Women 20, as an engagement group of the G20, we are in the social track. We work under the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, and the Sherpa there, DG Zane Dangor, and we work within the context of South Africa's presidency. The theme for South Africa's presidency is solidarity, equality, and sustainability. And we are happy that we have been working within that framework, as well as amplifying the voices of African women, as well as women in the global South. Women 20 at a glance, as I've mentioned, we're an official engagement group, in what we call the social track. In other words, we work in parallel with the ministerial track. And in our case, the Women's Economic Empowerment Working Group that's led by the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, and probably why I'm presenting to you today. We're happy to say that Women20 is celebrating 10 years of our existence this year, which is very relevant, I believe, because first time on African soil and the 4th Global South country in a row. So I'm referring here to Indonesia, India, and Brazil as the previous countries from the Global South. And what we've done is we have, as much as possible, focused on the recommendations that have come from these previous 3 presidencies in the work that we are doing now. Our mission and priorities, Madam Chair, are as follows. We are aligning ourselves, as I say, with the South African presidency. We have been working tirelessly as volunteers across the G20 countries to develop recommendations for consideration by the leaders, obviously by our ministerial working group, as well as by the leaders of the G20. And we wish to mainstream women's economic empowerment and gender equality within the G20 processes. And so that is the focus, but we are also working on outreach programs within the limited resources that we have, again, as volunteers in this process, as South African delegates and as delegates across the G20. Our thematic areas, we have 6 thematic areas, Madam Chair. The first 3 actually overlap with the Women's Economic Empowerment Working Group, and that wasn't by mistake. We did do extensive consultations on what the thematic areas would be. And so the first one is entrepreneurship and financial inclusion. We are also focusing on the care economy and gender-based violence and femicide. Besides this, because we have a socioeconomic perspective or focus, we also look at climate justice, the environment and food security, health equity for women and girls, as well as STEM, so education, STEM, and the digital divide. Cross-cutting areas are disability. We have a disabled delegate as well as a disability advisor, as well as an African advisor and African knowledge partners, as you will soon see. The processes of the G20, there are 4 tracks really, and we are involved in some of them more intensively than others. The policy recommendations is what I've mentioned to you now, and I'll explain how that works. There is an outreach track, and I know there are a number of civil society organizations in South Africa currently busy with that, and we are doing some of that ourselves. As I've mentioned, we function under the leadership of the Sherpa, Director General Zane Dango, and we also have an events track. And as you know, we have a real more than 100 meetings in South Africa. What is really good about this is it allows us to function in a multilateral space as South Africa, to influence the discourse, to mainstream Africa and the Global South. And we have really been working hard towards this. Madam Chair, honorable members, I am the head of delegation and co-chair of Women20 2025 South Africa, and my co-chair is Dr. Sindiswa Mzamo from the Global Circle of Business Women. I myself am an executive director at the Human Sciences Research Council, which is the organization that is behind the head of delegation. We have 6 task teams, as I've mentioned, all working on each of those 6 thematic areas. The task teams meet once every week and have made tremendous progress. Currently, we are negotiating the third draft of the communique that we wish to release at the summit for the attention of the leaders and other ministerial groups. This is the team of W20. We comprise of 13 delegates. And just to say, we are from, we're cross-sectoral in a sense, in that we are academia, we are from business, as well as from civil society. So it is a mix, an interesting mix of perspectives that we work with across our task teams and our working groups. Just briefly, we have then chairs and co-chairs of each of these task teams and working groups. And this is just to illustrate that the chairs of the task teams, we have one South African chair and one co-chair of the task team. This is determined by discussions with the other delegates and within the Troika, so Brazil, South Africa, and the United States, as well as expertise. So we have also tried to focus as much as possible, you will see, on having co-chairs from the Global South. This is just the other three task teams. As you can see, they're Health Equity, South Africa and Italy. And then we have Climate Justice, the Environment and Food Security. And we're working there with Argentina and Indonesia. On the next page, as I've said, we're celebrating 10 years of W20. Some of our delegates have been with us for those 10 years. So they are working with us in a task team to prepare for a celebration, but also to work towards releasing a research output. Very often people ask, what is the impact of Women 20? And we commissioned a study in order to look at what the impact has been over the past 10 years. Very interesting outcomes from a legal perspective, which is my background, in terms of policy influence, as well as influence on legislation, which is obviously your domain. What has happened so far and what is still to happen, we launched W20 South Africa on the 26th of February at the National Research Foundation, and we were joined by a number of dignitaries as well as online participants and people in the room. We participated in the Commission on the Status of Women in New York, not for that entire period, it's far too expensive, but we were there for about 5 days. And we partnered with other global institutions in order to have events on the side of CSW. Our inception meeting was on the 21st to the 22nd of May. Very successful. We had 194 persons in present, which included 48 international delegates and about 300 online participants across the 2 days. We are having our summit and working hard at it from the 12th to the 14th of October in Johannesburg. And the main purpose of that summit is really to hand over the communique to the Sherpa, but also to hand over Women 20 to the United States. And so it is very important for us to have support in this regard because of the global backlash against women and the fact that we are working in an environment that is not very easy to navigate. Then I'm sure that you are all aware that we have a Social 20 Summit on the 18th to the 20th of November. We've had a number of meetings with the conveners, one of them a minister in the presidency, and the other, of course, our deputy president, Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, and previous head of UN Women. Women 20 is assisting with trying to finalize some legacy projects and bring international civil society on board as well. And then we're hoping to participate in some way in the Leadership Summit towards the end of November. Just some pictures. I won't take your time here, but we were very fortunate at the launch to have our Deputy Minister from the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities address us, as well as our former Deputy President, the CEO of the HSRC. And you can see there that our focus on values, African values, in particular, the value of Ubuntu, as has been done by the South African presidency. I mentioned that we participated in New York at the Commission on the Status of Women, the 69th convention, and partnered with many international delegates to have side events. We had numerous side events, including with the World Bank, with W20 Italy, with W20 Turkey, as well as with the Global Alliance on Care. Just some photographs of the groups at our events. They were very successful. In particular, our first session was related to the backlash against women's rights internationally, and it was a very inspiring conversation. I've already mentioned what we've done to date. We've launched and we're working on the governance issues around Women 20, which are also related to the legacy that South Africa wants to leave behind. This is the program of the inception meeting. You can use the QR code to go there for the details of the program. We were very fortunate to have the Minister of Women present with us at the opening plenary, the Deputy Minister of Women to be with us at our gala dinner, and the Deputy Director General on the plenary of the second day. And it was truly a wonderful experience. Just some photographs there, UN Women and the Minister, and one of our esteemed panels. We've also been working closely, Madam Chair, with G20 Empower Alliance. They deal specifically with entrepreneurs in the private sector. And we have also been working towards having a joint session with them at the Social 20 Summit. We were present at the pre-meeting of Youth 20. And these are just some examples of meetings. We've been incredibly busy. And we had our former Minister, Dlamini Zuma, with us at the Y20 Summit. Pre-summit, apologies, also presented at the third Sherpas meeting in Sun City on the 26th of June, 2025, and very happy to say that the Sherpas were very supportive of issues around gender equality and women's empowerment being embedded into the G20 agenda. We also attended a ministerial meeting in the Kruger National Park where I presented with UN Women and G20 Empower Alliance on the importance of women's issues within the context of the G20. We've co-hosted a number of events. We've done one with Wikona in the presidency. We've also been partnering with Oceans 20 in women's role in the blue economy, and G20 Empower Alliance as well. What I haven't had time to update the slides, but last week, Friday, we had a wonderful outreach in the Western Cape with more than 100 young women. And it was really gratifying to see how these young women have many ideas to share with Women 20, with our leaders about their lives. So lived experiences around that. We have another outreach, and we're doing this in partnership with UN Women in KwaZulu-Natal, as well as a third one in Gauteng. The red block there is the important one. We have met to negotiate the communique, and we will be meeting again this Friday to continue the negotiations. It must be stressed that this is a consensus-based document, so we need to agree on the contents and the wording of the communique under the leadership, of course, of South Africa. This is just a taste of the summit, which is happening on the 12th to the 14th of October. The save the date for the summit that we distributed, and a draft of our program. I have sent the presentation through, so you're welcome to look at this at your leisure. But we're very happy that our Auditor General will be joining us at the cocktail reception function. We will have Dr. Naledi Pandor joining us on the first day, and we're hoping to hear from the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, as well as the Department of International Relations Cooperation, about who will be present for the handing over ceremony. I'm just ending with a quote, why we are doing this in the spirit of Ubuntu, and that is really around what our first democratic president has said about South Africa being a light to the world, and we want to stand on our identity as South Africans and our role in the world, and to make that contribution through following the values of Ubuntu. Madam Chair, honorable members, our sponsors and funders are reflected in the first two rows, and we also have a number of knowledge partners from South Africa, the continent, and internationally who are supporting us in numerous different ways. So we are very grateful to those sponsors and partners, and one has now come on board as well, and that is the City of Johannesburg. And I want to thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Prof. We appreciate your presentation and the work that you are doing and leading. Please may you remain online. We're going to take one quick presentation as well, and then I will ask members if they do have any questions or any inputs for you. Zwide, ma'am, the speaker has asked us to consider your petition that you sent to Parliament last year. Please do know that we've already had a look at your presentation, so you can just give us the highlights, ma'am. But welcome to Parliament, and thank you for reaching out to the Speaker's office. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, for the opportunity, and good morning to honorable members and everyone attending this meeting. It's a great opportunity for me to present. Unfortunately, I don't come with very nice news, but I'm coming with something that is in my heart that has been bothering me for a while. And the reason why I'm bothered by this is because in 2023, I became a victim of the same scam. And upon being a victim of this scam, I then started raising awareness over social media, alerting people about the scam. I was then approached by other victims of the similar scam who have lost millions. Maybe I should mention that I don't just see this as a scam, but I see it as another form of gender-based violence that is served to women in South Africa. So after raising awareness, we formed an organization that is called Recover and Rebuild Victim Empowerment. And what we're doing in this organization, we're providing support to the victims of this particular scam, and we give them a platform where they can talk and discuss how they feel, because most of them, they have shame, they live with guilt, humiliation, they blame themselves every day. And the society at large is not helping as well, because they are ridiculated by the society, called all sort of names, stupid, stupid, gullible, all these words that are used to the victims. And the other reason why we're taking this up here is because of the challenges that the victims have faced. Obviously, once you have discovered that you've been scammed, one will go to the police station to open a case. And when they go to the police station, they'll be told that there is no case here. You gave your money willingly, so you can go home. If not, the case is opened. However, no outcomes come from that investigation, and the victim will only get a message saying your case has been closed. What we've done since we started gathering as women, we wrote to the public protector asking that these cases should be attended. There has been a bit of traction there because of some of the cases have been taken by hawks, but a lot of other cases, they are sitting and they are closed and the victims are left in dispute. Imagine losing your million and you are told that you gave your money willingly, and then you can see that there is no justice. Other challenges that we have faced is we've seen the prosecution dropping the cases. Even after the arrests have been made by the victims, they would claim the lack of evidence. Then you ask yourself, what is fraud then? How do they know? How do they attain that there is lack of evidence? It is sadly a very sad state where I engage with women who are in the breach of committing suicide every day because they've got nothing to live for. Most of them, they were working. They were manipulated into resigning. They took all their pension. Now they can't even feed themselves. And the people who suffers mostly here are the children. And one might ask themselves that, what is love scam? Probably love scam will name it as a fraud where the scammer will build a fake relationship so that they can defraud the victim. And the main reason why I'm here is because this scam is now prevalent in all 9 provinces. And looking at the victims, the mental health state that they are at, they are children that are suffering every day because of this kind of a scam. It should be noted that I've got few statistics here on on this presentation, but the statistics are representing the number of victims that we have that I've engaged with, which are about 42, and about 60% of them, they were made to resign. And the amount that has been lost combined is more than 45 million. And most of the scam has been around from as back as 2014. However, it's been more prevalent between 2021 to 2024. And most people will say, love scam, they think you met a person online who had a fake profile. We all think of catfish, and they said a very sad story, created an emergency, then woman gave money. But with this kind of a scam, it's a different case because they meet their victims mostly in public places, which is at the malls, everywhere in the public places, at the airports. They even go to an extent where they go to workplaces to approach, even to divorce court, to lure women who are going through divorce so that they can defraud them. And most of these cases are more prominent in Gauteng, followed by KZN, but they are prevalent in all other cases. I won't dwell on global statistics and the common love scam, but I would like to dwell on how this particular scam works. I call this scam prayer room scam. Some call it ancestral scam. Depends who the person is. But the most technique that they use is, after meeting a victim, obviously you exchange numbers, then they will give you their fake names, claim, or even show you their passport, which has a fake name. And they normally claim to be from other African countries like Burundi, Tanzania, Kenya, where else these perpetrators are from Uganda. And they will quickly invite their victims to their homes. And I know most people don't believe in this, but I am convinced that there is African magic that is working there. after they have invited the victim at home, they will then claim that they are not allowed to be in a relationship without the ancestors' approval. Their ancestors' approval, thus invite the victim to a prayer room. So when the victim gets into this room, it's a normal dark room where it's partitioned. There is a person that is hidden there, but as a victim, you wouldn't see that someone is hiding. So there will be a sort of a voice that is speaking as an ancestor. This voice will welcome the victim. First, what they do to earn the trust from the victim, they will tell the victim that prophesy to them, tell them about the things that have happened to them, not just things that are on social media, but the very intimate things that happened in your past life, including if you have made abortion once in your life, it will come out there in that prayer room. And then they would claim that they've approved you as a girlfriend to their son. And the next step of the process will be, they will then say a victim is presented with, they are presenting a victim with blessings. So in that blessing, it will be a box, an empty box that has nothing in it. They will tell the victim to pray over it. Then the boyfriend is next to them. While it was open, you pray, put your hands in there, they close it. And when they open it, you pull it out. Now it's heavy, it has full of notes, bank notes. And with these bank notes, they then tell the victim that this is a lot of money. We are giving it to you for free so that you can start your life with our son. It is our culture. We do this so that our sons will live a better life. And then they will convince a victim that this is a lot of money to be kept in the house. And if you were to deposit this money at the bank will question you where it comes from, because they won't believe that it's coming from the ancestor. And the next thing, victims are convinced to take loans, even to resign. They are then convinced to withdraw a lump sum of money, 500,000 or more, from the banks after they've gotten those loans, and then submit that money at the prayer room. It depends. Sometimes they stay for a month or two and then they vanish. But we have established that this is a syndicate, which involves, unfortunately, some of the police, some of the prosecutors, the banks, mostly FNB, because most of the victims were encouraged to open an account with FNB if they didn't have one. You will be asked, after you've resigned, you are using Capitec to transfer your money from Capitec to your FNB account and do your withdrawals from the bank. There are instances where I've written to the bank itself, but I don't think I've got that power. No one is listening to me, but there's something that is happening at FNB, and I believe there is collusion between the scammers and the bank workers. I'll give you an example. One of the victims, she is based in Northwest. 520,000 was withdrawn from her account at Northgate without her presence. And the bank never did anything. Even now, she never got her money. Her case was never attended. Then we ask ourselves whether women have justice. As I said, there's a lot of distress that I've seen women going through. They are feeling humiliated, self-blame, depression. Some of them, they are in a position where they don't even know what to eat. Some of them, they are in a position where their house are about to be repossessed by the bank. I've got a victim right now. Her house is about to be repossessed. The municipality switched off the light. She has no hope. I normally encourage them. With her case, I don't even know how to assist because of these scams. So what I'm here for in this committee, I understand that it's important the power of awareness. As I've been raising awareness, I know I've been texted by a lot of women saying, thank you for raising awareness. But in an extent of covering the whole nation, I don't believe we've got that power, but maybe we can get assistance where the awareness could go to the rural places, all the radio stations where they get to know about the scams. And another quick win will be for government departments just to use their internal communication to raise awareness within their institution, letting people know about this kind of a scam. And I'm not sure, I'm being optimistic, and if it's possible for the victims that have resigned and lost their income, maybe to be hired even in different positions so that they get to live again. I'm sitting here in a position where I engage with these individuals on a daily basis, and in others, I don't see hope. In others, they have regained their strength. But we also need the collaboration between the police, the NPA, and Home Affairs to ensure that these perpetrators are brought into book, and for FNB also to take accountability for the role that it has played to make this a success. Because as much as the scammers are Ugandan nationals, they wouldn't have done this alone without the help of our fellow South African people. So my plea is to have something that will help these women, mostly awareness, and the victims themselves to get some sort of assistance. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Zwede. And Zwede, thank you for bringing this issue to our attention. I think your call in asking that government communication systems be utilized to warn women against these type of scams is not too much to ask, but you've also succinctly put forward a call to action in how you want this portfolio committee to deal with this petition that you've brought before us. But I will speak to that in the end. I just want to see if there are any questions or comments for Ms. Nxumalo and for Prof Bohler-Muller. I'll take hands, colleagues. I see the hand of Honorable Kanile. Are there any further hands? Honorable Peterson, Honorable Shabango, in that order for now, please. Honorable Kanile.
Honorable Chair, greetings to you, greetings to colleagues as well. Honorable Chair, I just want to appreciate the presentations that we have. I think I have been largely covered by the first speaker. And secondly, I want to applaud Ms. Nxumalo. I know Ms. Nxumalo from TikTok. She started creating awareness on TikTok. I think some of you know that I have an Angel Kanile Foundation. We hosted an event last year where she came to create awareness. I also believe that more work needs to be done in amplifying the awareness around these issues. And not only, what does she call it? I think is it love scam. Not only that, even the fake marriages. I think for those of us that are active on social media, we will normally see people going to report that somebody said they will marry me, and I think it's like a rental marriage where they were going to be paid 500 rands every month. And when the foreigners now stop paying them, it is then that they are coming forward because they want a divorce. I think there needs to be a very strong collaboration between ourselves and the Department of Home Affairs, like she has indicated. I'm really not sure how we can deal with the banks, because the banks, it's a private institution. But I do believe that as a portfolio, we need to find a way to engage them, especially when there is a suspicion that some employees, allegedly some employees within the FNB, are working with these people. I do believe that we can discuss this amongst ourselves and ensure that something is being done. And I also feel like the team in the Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, I think that is is it the planning or marketing department or advertising? They are a little bit lagging behind. When the minister delivered her speech, when we were talking about the fake jobs that our young persons are taking out there, especially after we have had the incident in Russia, Alabuka. There are contact numbers that she mentioned there. And I believe those contact numbers are important. One would have expected that immediately when she has announced those contact numbers on her speech, then they're all over our social media platforms, your Facebook, TikTok, website, everywhere, so that everyone that has a problem, they know where to go. But I did not see any of that. I think as a department, we do have our areas where we need to tighten our bolts and ensure that we are the voice that is out there to protect our women. And the awareness that she is talking about, Chairperson, I think is something that we really need to take serious, because I learned a few weeks ago, I think there's another woman also that was scammed 520,000 rand. It was a pension money. You can imagine at your elderly age, you are turning 60, you are waiting for your pension that is supposed to look after you for the rest of your remaining years together with the kids. Somebody comes and take it overnight, and you are left with nothing, and you can't even go back into the working sector to try and earn the income. So, Chair, I really love what I'm seeing here, and I'll appreciate it. I did not see this presentation. If it's readily available, I'll appreciate it if it can be shared with us. But thank you to the women that are driving this issue. It's an issue that is very important. We must keep driving it until each and every perpetrator is arrested, until we reach out to the CEO of FNB and something is done about this. But not only the CEO of FNB, because once we put all our focus on FNB, they may move to other banks. We need to find a way to ensure maybe that there is a communication that goes to the CEOs of all the banks within our country, so that they can be aware that there is a syndicate that does what you are talking about and something is being done. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kanyile, and thank you very much for those inputs. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Also, just check on our WhatsApp group. The presentation is there. Honourable Peterson, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Greetings to everyone on the platform. Allow me to firstly, Chairperson, appreciate the presentations that we have received. I don't think that I have a lot of questions, but one maybe to Ms Muller would be how, with the programs having been held, especially the one in the Western Cape or in Cape Town, I think, how does it empower, or how does it encourage empowerment for young people, especially from like rural areas, having heard their experiences during that program? Does it spark like a different kind of approach, knowing now, or having heard like the experiences? Does it give some kind of different approach to how we then accommodate young people from different rural areas? And then to Ms Nxumalo, I don't know, Chivas, and I'm not quite sure if this should be something that we look in, if there should be a question to her, or if there should be something that we look into as the committee. It would be, and my question would then be, what is the gender breakdown of victims in age and geographic location? Are rural areas more vulnerable? And then also, how are the digital platforms like social media, dating apps, responding to these scams? And what responsibility or regulation can be placed on them? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Peterson. Honourable Shabango, Fisani Shabango.
Thank you, Chairperson, and I much appreciated the presentation made here. I don't have questions, but just to appreciate this presentation and also some few comments. But I'm widely covered by Honorable Kanyile and the presenter is herself, Ms Nxumalo. I don't have much on the G20 presentation. The presentation by Ms Nxumalo talking of on awareness, everything that he presented and recommendations and expectation from us, I want to agree with that because the main important thing is the awareness on all social media, even on television, if we can, because if I can be honest with you, once these victims they start engaging in these processes, they don't listen to anyone. I had colleagues that they've been going through this process, and we as the spectators, we were aware that this is a scam in the way that she was processing a resignation, talking about starting a business with this foreign guy, but she never listened to anyone until she lost her money. Because they appear with these big plans, they work in the oil companies, they relocate, they're in overseas, the emergencies, everything. They use the same scan if you look at it, how these people are being robbed. But the awareness is the main thing that needs to happen. And a few percentage is that of old women that are going on pension. For me, I think someone informed these guys that so and so is going on pension, then they get closer, promising businesses. Because I know a woman, she's 72 today, that she was scammed millions. She was going on pension, she didn't resign, but she was scammed, like gone. And how do they know that these people are going on pension? So a few percentage are those that are going on pension. I'm just thinking it's a wild dream that the young women who are still in their working age, when they resign, because these scammers, they do not tolerate the delay. They want things to happen fast. That maybe if it can happen, I don't know. I'm thinking that if it can happen, that because now with the resignation, the process becomes fast in a way that in 6 weeks the money is out. Maybe if there's a delay from the side of the government in releasing the monies of these people that are resigning at a younger age, just to make sure that if there is a scam, then they decide to walk away because the money is not coming. I'm thinking of anything that can work to deter these scammers. The fake marriages it's something that we see on social media that it's happening. Now that the men, they can take the women's surname, it's another nightmare that is coming with a lot of scammers that will happen. Because I don't know, maybe women in South Africa, they're too desperate, or we too poor that the 500 rand means a lot, that you can actually sell yourself for 500 rand. Some, when you check on the fake marriages on Moja Love, it's only 400 rand. Then they agree to marry, but then later they want to divorce. So it's a big challenge. And on Ms. Nxumalo, on re-employment of these people that resign, then they are scammed. I've realized that it becomes a big challenge because so most of these people, they are teachers and nurses. I know that there is some other category, but the highest percentage is on the teachers and the nurses. And to rehire them back, it becomes a challenge because you have teachers that are not employed. Immediately when these ones resign, the post gets filled. It becomes a bit of a challenge. I'm talking from experience that I've seen it happening. One thing that I'm not sure where Ms. Nxumalo reside, because my experience, it's the first time that there is foreign national that I'm hearing that, did you say Uganda? Most of them that I know that they've scammed people is Nigerians. They can do this thing in a way that they can even show fake family members. So maybe when we raise awareness and when we talk about this, we I don't know, because now if we mention just the Ugandan, the scammers, and then other foreign nationals like Nigerians, they are not counted. They will think that we're not aware. Maybe it's whether we mention or we don't mention, but if we decide to mention, let's mention all of them. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourable Shabango. I agree with that last point that you made, most definitely. I don't think we should single out one group when we know that there are various groups involved with these scams. Honourable Chauke Adonis, followed by Honourable Mabel, followed by Honourable Mailola.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And I would like to also just appreciate the presentation that is before us, and also for this matter being escalated and being brought to the attention of the Portfolio Committee. And additionally, I think what was important was for us to really get an insight on what is really happening in order for us to start looking at legislative interventions, at government interventions, and community-based and civil society interventions as well. What I am taking from this, and many women find, especially those women who are professionals, find themselves becoming victims of these love scams as well. And I think what we are not doing more of, and I would really like to appreciate our presenters for bringing this forward, is raising awareness. Therefore, it means there needs to be intersectional and cross-departmental and sectorial collaboration that takes place in order for us to create awareness, not only with the Department of Home Affairs, but it has to be with the Department of Communication, GCIS, and also the banking fraternity, banking sector. And that cross collaboration will seek to ensure that we mitigate any form of even online romance scams that take place, that we know that currently these syndicates are utilizing the digital platform in order for them to cross-continental, cross-country, globally reach women in South Africa who become vulnerable, especially those who find themselves as divorcees, those who are going into their mature stages of life as well, and those who are becoming professionals as well, who become victims in this regard. But also, I think our institutions need to be, we need to really look at our institutions in terms of, the laws that we enforce, in terms of the justice system. How does that justice system enable victims to come forward, and how are they prosecuted? And I think we need to also ascertain data of how many of these cases have been brought forward, how many of them have been processed, what have been the outcome, and how many of them have been dropped. I see in the presentation it spoke about cases that were retracted. How many are those cases, and do we know the reasons why these cases end up being retracted by these victims? Secondly, is if you as a secondary person is able to identify a potential possibility for one falling into such a scam, what can you do outside of communicating with the directly affected person? Are you able to alert any what is this called? I'm going to say security services in order for them to mitigate the victims falling into this trap. Additionally, Chairperson, in terms of what Honorable Kanyile was emphasizing on in terms of the communication and correspondence that should be going out also to the banking sector, I think she is correct to say it should not be centralized or focused on one banking institution, but it should be across all banking institutions, meaning the entire banking fraternity. To have their view or what they have in place as measures to mitigate such actions taking place. What are they doing in terms of the awareness that they are raising with their clients as well? How many of these cases have been reported to the banks, and what are the processes that the banking fraternity follow in order to process matters of this nature? And I think that's very important because that will give us data and statistics that we do not have access to. One tried to also conduct a desktop research, and you find that this research is not very much common and the data is not accurate. And perhaps this will also speak to the Research Council on analyzing and conducting a research study that will allow for us to really have a clear indication of the impact of such scams that are taking place in the country, continentally and globally, and look at what has been applied internationally and continentally as best practices to mitigate such incidences. Lastly, Chairperson, I think here what we're seeing is a common trait, and I think from even emanating from last week's debate and the ministerial statement that spoke about the online platforms of how we can create more awareness, how we can ensure that there's digital literacy that takes place, how do we ensure that we put safety and security measures in place, due diligence is quite critical for us to really see any positive results and a turnaround. But I think the first part for us to start with is start to look at legislation in terms of how can we ensure that there is levels of accountability, not only from those who are perpetrators, but those who are having their platforms utilized for such activities. And I think that's where, for example, in one of my committees, we've engaged with the likes of your TikTok, where we're trying to see how best to regulate platforms of that nature in order for us to protect consumers ultimately. And I think that's where we're going to put in accountability measures through regulations and legislations. But I just really want to appreciate the presentation before us. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chauke Agnes. Honourable Mabel, it's your turn.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, on the first presentation about scammers, I'm fully covered. Now, my question will base on the first presentation, which was made by Ms Bohler-Muller. Am I allowed to go there?
Yes, ma'am. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, the W20 thematic priorities explicitly list GBVF as a core area. Yet in South Africa, we recorded 14,973 sexual offences in Q3 of 2024, of which 11,803 were rapes. Why has the government not operationalized the Femicide Watch dashboard or set conviction rate targets linked to the NCGBVF Act amendment? And how does government justify pouring resources into summit and communiques while women shelters and GBVF survivor service remain chronically underfunded at provincial level? Provide the 2025-26 allocations per province for shelters and psychological support. And on economic empowerment, W20 calls for entrepreneurship and financial inclusion. Yet in 2025, women-led SMMEs still face red tapes and exclusion from public procurement, and the red tape task team has failed to implement recommendations. What concrete steps will be taken to guarantee 30% procurement for women-owned enterprises in 2025 and 2026? And why has government not integrated W20 commitment into the board-based Black economic empowerment framework to ensure women entrepreneurs access sustainable market and financing? On care, economic and social protection, the W20 agenda highlights the care economy, yet South Africa's child support grant remains below the food poverty line, while 155 under 5 children died from malnutrition in 2025. When will the grant be increased to meet or exceed the FPL? And with the SASSA post-bank contract expiring September 2025, what contingency is in place to prevent grant beneficiaries, especially women-headed households, from being stranded without payments? On climate justice, food security, and rural women, the W20's thematic focus includes climate justice, environment, and food security, yet rural women farmers remain without adequate irrigation, land reform support, or climate adaptation finance. Why has DALRRD underspent billions while hunger and food insecurity rise in rural areas? And what is the government's 2025 plan to integrate women, smallholders, farmers into climate finance mechanisms and food security strategies? Lastly, on digital divide and education, W20 flags STEM and the digital divide as priority areas. Yet, as of mid-2025, DCDT connectivity report shows 595 schools stuck at 10 Mbps, with 209 disconnected. How will government reach digital divide for girl learners before the W20 summit in October 2025? What percentage of rural schools serving girls have received functional learner devices since 2022, and how many remain completely excluded from digital learning? Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mabel. Honorable Mayilola.
Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings, colleagues, and also greetings to our presenters. Mine, Honorable Chair, is in terms of what Ms Nxumalo has presented to us today. I would first like to also appreciate that Ms Nxumalo has brought this issue to us and also highlighted the seriousness of this romance scam. But mine, Chair, it's mainly... Chair?
I can hear you, Honorable Mayalola.
Thank you. Mine is mainly, I'm mainly interested in terms of reporting of these cases to the law enforcement. What I would like to find out from Ms. Nxumalo is that when this women who were scammed and they go and open cases of fraud and criminal cases at the police station, are they receiving the attention that their matter deserves? What is the attitude in terms of law enforcement and police in the police stations? And also, I would like just to find out from Ms. Nxumalo that in the journey that you walked with some of these women and they managed to successfully open a criminal fraud case, when the investigation is happening, is there a point where a certain bank has been approached by the police so that they can be able to get a statement or to get their view in terms of maybe the supporting documents which were brought by maybe the victims? What I'm trying to find out is that, because you told us right now that when you try to engage with a certain bank, FNB, they are not cooperating at this moment. Because if this woman the police can open cases and successfully investigate, we will be able to get to a bottom of a bank being brought forward for them to come maybe in court, or even if they don't want to come, they might be summoned or subpoenaed to come and give their side of the story, so that we can be able to know that these scammers, how are they managing to manipulate the system of banks and even to manipulate the workers in the banks. We'll be able to even get to the bottom of this issue, because what Ms. Nxumalo, you've highlighted is the issue of the financial scamming of this woman. So we need to also pay attention to that as well. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mayalola. I'm now going to hand over to you, Prof, to answer what you can and what was directed to you, and then we'll to Nxumalo. But I think, Prof, I think the concern which Honorable Mabel and Honorable Peterson had touched on, our committee, we are very allergic to once-off talk shops, workshops, events, cocktail functions that doesn't translate into real, meaningful, tangible action that we can see in our communities. And I guess that is really where we're going with our questions. How is the W20 going to make a difference in the lives of ordinary women, youth, and persons with disabilities in South Africa? Over to you, Prof.
Thank you. You don't see my hand, Chair, before.
Oh, Honorable Polwani, my apologies. Sorry, Prof. Can we just allow Honorable Polwani as well?
Yes.
My apologies, Honorable Member.
Thanks very much, Chair. Let me join my colleague by welcoming both presentations. Mine, I've got only the small question under the woman W20. I just want to check, Chair, I saw the program of the meetings. For example, the one of the 22 and 23 November and others. I just want to check if everyone is allowed to attend. I mean, our ordinary women at the rural areas, they can attend, or there are specific people who may attend. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Polwani. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much for your question. W20, we are not decision makers. We are not politicians and we are not in government. So we can advise, we can do research, we can collect data, we can advise, we can make recommendations, but we cannot implement. The reason for this is multiple. The money does not come from the fiscus. We have to raise the funding ourselves as members in the social track. And so because of these limited resources, we are not able to accommodate everybody. We are able, however, to allow our partners to assist us to reach out to as many women as possible in South Africa and on the continent, and we do that. But we are very reliant on our own networks as well as the networks on our partners to do what we need to do. So we are working tirelessly as volunteers to make sure that the right messages get to the right people and that we listen to those on the ground. So my day job is at the Human Sciences Research Council, and we conduct research to make a difference in South Africa. And so obviously our research does inform the work of Women20, including social opinion surveys to collect as many voices as possible. But we do not have the infrastructure or the resources to reach out to all communities across the country. Again, I want to emphasize that we work, for example, with Oxfam and with UN Women, and we use those platforms, but we do not have platforms of our own other than as volunteers and as part of organizations that we work with. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for the good work that you are doing as volunteers in our communities and as you support South Africa through this G20 journey. Over to you, Ms. Nxumalo. You had a lot of questions that were directed to you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Maybe to answer the few questions, the gender age, the victims of these scams are mostly women from the age of 55 and above. I do have a spreadsheet that includes all the details of the victims, how they met their scammers, how much they lost, but they are mostly in their 50s and above. They do target younger people like me, of course, because I'm only 38, but there are only few that are younger, but most of the target are the older ones, mainly because they are government employees and they've been working for a while, so their pension is huge. And they do work with people from GEPF. You'll find that most of these victims, their pensions are processed faster than they should. And most of them, the so-called ancestor will tell them when your money will reach your account. You ask yourself, who knows? How do they know? In some of the instances, you'll find that the other victim was suspecting that she was being scammed. She transferred her money while she was at the bank for withdrawal. While she was transferring that money, when she got to that prayer room, the so-called ancestor said, "You're acting as if you are smart. Why did you move that money?" Which means someone from the bank is also monitoring your transactions. In terms of the cases that are reported, there isn't much of a good reception when you open the case. Most of the victims, they are turned away. I've assisted few where they will go and open the case and they'll be told there's no case here. You gave your money willingly. It was just an arrangement. If the case is opened, nothing is being done with the cases. They will sit. And the fact that some of the cases are now attended, it's only because we wrote to the public protector. Otherwise, none of the cases were being attended. And the SAPs, they've got the threshold of fraud. If an amount is above 500,000, they should transfer that docket to the Hawks, but they don't do that. And the Hawks themselves, they do have a division that is looking into love scam, but they are understaffed. I think they've got less than 5 people within Gauteng that is big that are looking into these cases. And they are not only looking at ancestral scam, they're looking at other different types of scam that we know from the Congolese, the other ones from the Nigerians. So the reception itself, I myself, when I opened the case, I asked the police officer to sit somewhere because I couldn't speak there because I was breaking down. Luckily for me, that officer respected me. He listened to me. But when my case got to the detective, who was a female, the detective told me first day, and I was from the psych hospital the previous day. I stayed there for 3 weeks after being released. The detective told me that what I need to know is that they only arrest people that they know where they are. The second thing is, even if they can arrest this person, the court is going to let them scot-free because of lack of evidence, which was very much alarming for me as a victim. And the other police officer came in and said, "Oh, you know what? You should have given me that money." I had to battle, after that, after from the hospital, I'm out. I started having flashback, wanting to commit suicide again. But in terms of the reception, it's not nice. Victims are more victimized at the stations. Some of the police, they don't mind to stand and shout so that everyone will look at the victim and say, "You were stupid, you gave away your money, so you must leave this place." It's a very difficult challenge that we're having. And in terms of the investigation, none of the investigation has brought fruits except for those that are with the Hawks. There are 3 victims, I think 4, that are arrested, and their cases at Cambridge. But with more of the cases, nothing is happening. And I do believe that our SAPS is not equipped to investigate such cases. And the fact that there is no paper trail of money, they allow the victims, they collude with the bank so that someone can go in and withdraw 500,000 cash, and then there is no paper trail after that. But again, I do believe I've engaged with forensic people. They do tell me that it's possible to trace money based on the series numbers. So it's not that it's impossible, but there is no willingness. And I also think they are lacking of skills to investigate such cases. What other question did I have? Oh, in terms of the banks, we do have SABRIC in South Africa, the institution that combines all the banks. I did ask to see them through Colonel Chilwane from the Hawks, but they refused because they said I'm on social media. So they don't want to see their names there, but I believe someone else can engage with them because I believe the banks themselves should improve their controls. What I've noted is the scammers used a loophole. So someone in South Africa can go to different banks within 2 hours and apply for the loans, and they'll be granted loans within that period, which means there's something that they know that it takes time to update the system if you have taken loan from another bank. And that is something that needs to be looked out on to prevent this from happening. I'm not sure if there's another question that I need to address.
I think you were very clear in your responses, Zwide. So I think if there's anything else, we can definitely be in touch with you again. But I want to really thank you for bringing this issue to Parliament. Thank you for fighting for the rights of women. And thank you for being a voice for the voiceless. And I really do think we will take your recommendations seriously, and we will interact with the other portfolio committees. Some of the honourable members have mentioned that we should refer some of your presentation at least and some of your recommendations to the portfolio committee on police, on justice and communications and others. So we'll stay in touch with you. We'll also report back to the speaker about our engagement with you. I also do think your recommendation around the communications, government communications being utilized in a better fashion to warn women against these scams. But we do need the criminal justice system to come on board to support women in this regard. Colleagues, I want to say thank you very much to Prof Bohler-Muller. Thank you to you, Ms Nxumalo. Thank you to our colleagues on the platform, our legal services that joined us earlier, to our support team. Thank you very much for for your help and your support this morning. Colleagues, we've made great strides this morning in terms of the work that we have to do around the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. So I thank you for your time. Our meeting is now adjourned, and we will meet again on Friday to consider whether we will proceed with the committee bill and also to look at our fourth term and first term program, as well as our strat plan and APP. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Ms. Nxumalo. We wish you well. Bye-bye, colleagues.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Honorable Kanyile.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Thank you, colleagues.
Long live the chair.
Honorable Sisani.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bahlonitwa.
Thank you, Chair and colleagues.